Hello, feisty chess people. This is Ben. I have been paired as white against Qxd4 on leechess.org. 15-10 game. Let's kick it off with e4, as we like to do. c5. A Sicilian. Okay. I'm going to play something a little different this time. Usually I've been playing the Smith-Morra gambit recently. Let's go with knight f3, d4, open Sicilian. And I could go for main lines. It's been a while since I played those. I like this sideline with queen takes d4, the Chekhover variation. You usually don't want to take back with your queen on d4. The idea, though, is that we can pin the knight that's going to attack that queen on c6. So knight to c6, we play bishop b5, and we're going to give that bishop up because this is all about quick development. So the main line will go knight c6, bishop b5, and then bishop to d7, breaking the pin. We take on c6. Here, we'll see this. There's other ways black can go about this, but nothing's really better than just grabbing the two bishops, which is what we're giving up here. Last game I played as black, I got the two bishops. But this is a line where white has plenty of compensation for that. So bishop d7 is the likely move. Yep, and now we're going to take. And after bishop takes d7, we've just got a big lead in development. Knight comes out. Next move will probably be bishop g5. Knight f6 is a pretty natural move here. There's also a positional trap here. If black were to play e5 in one go, then he ends up in a painful position. Maybe we'll look at that in the analysis, or maybe it'll come up in the game. So bishop g5, we're still in the main lines. e6 is the best move here, but I've played a lot of games where black goes for e5 and suffers. Okay, so Qxd4 seems to know what he's doing here. The main move here is castle queenside. That's opposite side that black is likely to castle. Bishop e7 is really the only move that makes much sense here. And it may look... Ooh. Pardon me a minute, I have something in my eye. Okay. I might just be dealing with that. Okay. May look like we can win a pawn. Or force him to take back on f6. So we go bishop takes f6. Looks like if we force him to take back on f6 with the pawn on g takes f6. But he can take back with the bishop. And after queen takes d6, he goes something like queen a5 or queen b3. And he's got a lot of pressure on my king side, on my queen side, I should say, where my king resides. So that's not a very good line. We can show you that in the analysis. I like to play queen d3 here with an idea of knight to d4. The other main move is bring the h-rook to e1. But we might want the h-rook on h1 if we're going to have this kingside attack. It's good to play h4 here. I always have to be concerned about knight to g4, because that threatens a big old fork on f2. I think h4 makes a lot of sense as a preparatory move for going knight d4. Okay. He's attacking the bishop. Immediately what comes to mind is the feisty option of letting that bishop hang. Playing knight d4 anyway. That allows our queen to slide over to h3. So let's look at this line. Knight d4, h takes g5, h takes g5. Knight to h7. The alternative is probably simply taking on f6. Bishop takes, then knight d4. Take on f6. I also have options of taking on d6 if bishop takes, and he better take with the bishop because his king, he doesn't want to open up that king side. Okay, those are our two candidates. Let's look at knight d4 again. Knight d4, h takes g5, h takes g5. Knight h7, queen f, or knight anywhere actually, queen h3. Knight d7 might be the best. No, that... Let's do this. Let's do the feisty thing. This can't be in black's interest to actually take that bishop. He can take on g5 with check, however. Well, at the very least, this gives Icky Quarters 2 something to think about. Okay, we're good on time. We got 2.5 minutes to make 3 more moves, as per the milestones up there. He goes for it. We better take to follow up. Just check for anything better quickly. Sliding my king over to b1 might have been a bit more prudent. I don't know if I had time for that. I know these lines. I knew them long ago. It's been a while since I've played this. Yeah. Knight d7 is probably the best because the knight is at least safe there. If the knight goes to g4, then queen h3 also hits the knight. And after bishop takes g5 check, king slides to b1. Actually, he's got knight h6 there. Maybe f4. We goes to h7. I think that's a bad choice. I think queen h3 just wins here. No, he's got... Okay. I've got g6. g6 is worth considering here. f4 is worth considering. If he wants to take on g5, he'll have to give a piece back. But I think g6 looks pretty good. G6, knight back to g5. Then I can't get my queen to h3. But I can take, force him to take. Get a couple of pawns. I got a pawn for that piece. opens up his king. That might be the deciding factor here, even if I'm down some material. At that point, I'd have 2 pawns for the piece, and I'd be hitting. I'd take apart his center with knight takes e6. If he takes with the king, however, okay. g6, knight. I could come back to f6. f4, again, also makes sense. f4, e5. Knight f5 is crushing there. Isn't it? What about the immediate e5? He's got bishop g5, and then after I move my king, he plants the bishop on h6. f4, e5, queen h3 just threatens mate. But then he's winning a piece. No, he's not. He can't take. He can take bishop takes. Okay, f4, e5, queen h3, bishop takes g5. Check. Maybe just king slides over, and then I've got knight f5. If king b1, bishop h6, knight f5. He's got queen f6 then. Okay, we're looking really deep. This is intense stuff. I've gone way over my limit now. I like the look of f4 though. Not sure about g6 anymore. g6. Knight moves. Take here. They both look appealing, frankly. f4 is good. I just realized something. He'll have a pawn on f4, and he won't have check. Okay, so f4 it is. Yeah, key consideration there is in a lot of these lines. If he has to take on f4 with a pawn, I don't know, it was just sort of a general consideration. I didn't look at the concretes there, but I need to make a move. Yeah, that makes e5, knight f5 a lot better. He'll have to give back the piece. Okay, he's giving it back immediately. Or is he going to take with the knight or the queen? Probably the queen. I'll be a pawn down, but I'll have such open lines to black's king if he goes for both of these pawns. Yep, okay. Now my king is safe. I got queen h3 ideas still threatening that. All right, feisty game. Feisty game. Sicilians are always fun. Yeah, that h-file is a real problem. could try maybe queen g4 here. Let's try to keep my queen off the queen side, but I must have a way to kick him around with a knight. All right. Just activating his other rook. I mean, queen h3 looks pretty good here. He can't move the knight. He's going to have to play queen h6, at which point I get the pawn back, and I can continue with mate threats. Queen h3, queen h6. Actually, I can just move my queen, chase him with the rook. Yeah, let's go queen h3. In the interest of time at this point. Mates on h7 and h8 if the knight moves. Queen h6. Okay, queen g6. I suppose that works. Now rook h2 seems to threaten rook d to h1. And he's got to start making some weakening moves on his king side. That looks good. Also, it guards g2 for what that's worth. Gotta make a better move, though. Maybe a knight. Let's do this. He's not really threatening anything on e4, is he? No. Take on e4. Oh, he's threatening a mate. Okay, bishop takes e4. I think I could go with rook h2 anyway. Oh, my knight holds on to c2. That's really key. Okay. Those lines, I believe, work out for me. We're going to triple up on the h-file. That's just a giant gun shooting down his h-file. He has no pawn support there. I could have gone for knight takes c6 first. Okay, he's got about twice as much time as us, but he's got a lot more to think about, I think, defensively. When you get this kind of attacking position, you can often just kind of make natural moves. All right, that makes some sense. He's planning on running his king. We have a chance to open up the position a bit further. No. We've got knight takes e6. Because his knight... Well, hold on. We got knight takes e6 right now. Yeah, that's key. That just wins us a pawn, at least temporarily, and more importantly, opens up his... If it wins us a pawn, yeah, this has got to be good. I'm just going to go for it. We're hitting that rook. Maybe thinking of hopping back to f4. Hitting that queen, and it's support. Okay, that's good. He's going for it. We could simplify here. Are we winning? Do we have the material to compensate? It's even right now. That would put us a pawn to the good. Pawn up, queenless ending. Might be good for us since we're down on time. Even better might just be e takes f6 here. Yeah, he can't take back with the queen. But that introduces a lot of complications that queen takes f would not introduce. Let's go for the endgame. That's a practical decision. Could be a tough ending to win, actually, with rooks, but I'm a lot more comfortable with a 10-second increment for an ending. I'm hitting d6 here. Got some initiative. His king is a little better than mine in an ending. Has to be said. Need to make some left. I've got knight d5. That's a pretty strong knight. Especially if I can build in b3 and c4, perhaps. Alright. Yeah, the knight would really like to blockade this pawn and keep the king out of f6 and e7 for that matter. Shuts down that bishop on that diagonal as well. And c4 looks like a decent move to support that knight. We don't want all of our pawns to end up on the light squares with the bishop, but for now, that bishop, that looks like a good way to shut the bishop down, so. And if he tries anything like g6, I got rook h2, rook h7 check, followed by g takes h6. Sorry, f takes g6. Okay, he's activating a rook. It's a good move. I like that move. I'm vulnerable on my 4th rank if I go with g4, say. Yeah, let's solve two problems at once here. Secure that knight, and also give my king some left. Mm-hmm. Make our rook a little more active. We could play g4 if we need to later, but I don't want to step into rook e4. I'm going to get b3 in first. Ideally b3 and a4. His rook's going to get pretty active here. Could double on the e file. Yeah, okay. Now do I have... No, I don't have f6. Okay. Okay. Now after g4, I might have something like rook f4. So he's coming back there. He wants to repeat. Maybe knight f4 here. That has to be pretty good. Yeah. That looks good. He's got bishop e4 check. Steps him into some trouble, though, if he wants to take that f-pawn. Okay. How bad do you want that f-pawn, sir? This looks like it's going to come down to the old single rook, each side with one rook ending. If I can get g4 in here, it solves a lot of my problems. He's checking the tactics. There's a lot to check out. I don't know the best way to follow up if he goes bishop takes. If he goes rook takes, I think rook takes f4, then make him go bishop takes I'm sorry, f5. I keep saying f4. I get this. I'm still working on the square names. I'm not used to talking so much about this, so yeah. I got a nice looking knight e6 if he doesn't take on f5. Okay, he's worked out the tactics and he's okay with it. Yeah, it looks like taking is the way to go. Something simple like knight e2 and then d4. If only I could. Okay, this is quite interesting. Make his king step to g6. He has to go king g6 here. King e6 walks into knight d4. Knight d4 might be the best move anyway. Let's make it. We got his king cut off from the center with our rook. And our king can approach, at least get to d2. And we've got a slightly better pawn structure. We've got a lot less time on the clock, though. If he goes bishop e4, I can just play king d2 anyway. There's no threat on bishop takes bishop g2 here. He's not afraid to go pawn grabbing here. It looks like I have an indirect defense of this pawn, but I'm not sure about it. Yeah, I might have just dropped that pawn. Yeah, okay. He's got the better of me here. I still got his king cut off for the time being. And that pawn on d6 may be weak. If he puts puts it on a light square, then that would really hamper his bishop's mobility, even though that could secure the pawn. Boy, that's a tricky move. Knight f5. Let's get my king safe from checks first. Now his king is really shut out of the action. We need to build up a time cushion here. I've got knight b5 to win back a pawn, it seems. Although there are always tactics. a6 might be a good idea for him. I don't know where my king goes. Maybe I just move that pawn to g3. No, that walks into bad news. Gotta make a move. Okay, this might come down to king position. I think I have to take here, go into a rook ending. Okay. I'm counting on the fact that his king is really far away, and I'll be able to march my a pawn quicker than he can march his b and d pawn. Sorry, g and d pawns. Tense ending here. If he goes g5, I might just go rook a6. Seems to win back a pawn. Then I might be better. Okay. Do I just do it? He could play c4 and threaten a... No, let's just do it. Let's get that pawn back. Might be looking at an endgame where I have 2 pawns to sacrifice for his rook. Probably could have gone king d5 there, d4, but I'll make him repeat so I can at least gain some time on the clock. Okay. Can my king advance profitably here? Maybe b4? Let's repeat again. This is 2 tenths. Take a draw with king c2. That'd be an automatic draw. We'll do it. Whew. Okay. 2 pawns, down a pawn, being able to get a draw. It's a safe play. Maybe not the feistiest play. We'll see if computer analysis bears this out, but good game, Qxd4. Let's look at the ending here. It says it's a draw. So if I had tried king to c4, for instance, well, he can just go rook g4. I'd have to ultimately hide my king on a3, which probably is a bad strategy. I was just worried about pawn checks, actually, but then my king comes in. Lots to calculate there, lots of pawn race endings. But if I had tried to hide, let's see, go back to here. If I had gone to b2 and then hide on a3, it puts my king a long ways from his pawn. At this point, I might already be giving up on that, and it allows him, that allows him to defend here. And now he's got a simple idea of just pushing. I could push, I suppose. I get that pawn back. Yeah, it's a draw. Being that down on time, it's probably the smart move to take the draw. I found an active way to draw, and I'm happy about that, in a pawn down rook ending. My threat, coming back here, my threat is obviously I'm going to grab one of those pawns, and probably the other one too. My king can protect my queenside pawns, and if I even have to give up my rook for his passer, say on g1 or g2 at whatever point, I can probably get my 2 pawns far advanced enough and my king to support them that I'll have a win against the rook anyway. So, because black's king is way out of the game. So, yeah, let's look back at the game. Okay, our first draw. So we're still 500. We're 6 and 6 and 1. So the Chekhover Sicilian. We got the computer on here with the opening book. Queen takes d4. Only seen about 5% as often as knight takes d4 here. I like it. I like queen takes d4 because, hey, you're getting all your pieces out quickly. And you're going to give up the 2 bishops, but you're accentuating white's development advantage. And really, in these lines that in this opening that I've played, as I've played it, you almost always get, black doesn't hang on to the 2 bishops. And he ends up with that weakness on d6 if the game is played more positionally. But white also gets lots of fun attacking chances, as we saw in this game. I think black was smart to give the pawn back, to give the piece back. Yeah, it likes knight d4 here. Let's go back a bit. Yeah, you see rook h to e1 here, and queen to d3 are the main moves. Rook h e1, I think, was Tal's idea, was the first to play it. It's an opening that Tal used to play. So it's got a nice pedigree to it. But queen d3 was Judith Polgar's idea, either Judith or Susan, I forget. Susan, I believe, now that I think about it. Susan Polgar. Who was the one that got in the top 10? I think that was Susan. She used this to great effect. Actually, she has a great game against Alexei Shirov in the queen to d3 line. So yeah, the idea being the knight coming to d4. Knight d4 is the main move here. Or king b1 is also playable. I went for h5 immediately. If knight d4, I'm guessing a lot of the games kind of transpose if h6. Actually, no one plays h6 against knight d4. Interesting. Is there something horribly wrong with it? h4. We transpose to the game. Okay. h4. I'm curious if knight g4, bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and then queen d2. Why not queen d2 immediately? Okay. Knight d4. Only one game here, and white won it. Rook e8. I wonder if that's... Oh, it says a couple of people I've never heard of from 2010. But white did win that game after rook to e8. Let's look at the few more moves in that. f4. Oof. Doubling down. I guess f4 was a move that was useful to be played in my game as well. Rook c8, queen b, queen b6, king to b1. Bishop takes f6. Okay, so black never does take in that line. All right. Computer likes white, but only a little bit. It's funny for such a tactical-looking position. What about knight h7? Yeah, knight g4 made some sense because it can hop back to h6 when needed. Or go knight f2. What? Oh, queen g3. Knight g4. What about queen h3? Bishop takes g5. And then after this, the knight is still threatening the fork. Oh, knight h6, right. This saves everything for black. That looks bad. I did see something like that when I was calculating in the murky depths of my brain. Queen g3, interestingly, is a way to keep the equality here. Bishop g5 check. Ah. No, not f4. What about knight h6 here? f4. Oh, right, because the queen pins the g-pawn after the bishop moves. Okay. It's good to know these kind of standard tactics in the openings you play. It's a fishing pole idea that actually comes up in a lot of openings. With h4, you take my piece on g4 or g5, and I will take you back and hit your knight and bring in the mate threats. You'll have to give back the piece. H takes g5. It doesn't like h takes g5 for black here. It likes queen c7. Knight h7. Yeah, okay, plus 1.8. f4. Had that right. I lost some advantage here. Typical for my games, but at least I didn't lose it for good. Bishop takes g5, f takes g5. g6? Really? g6. Oh, because that still comes with check. Well, how would it go in the game? Queen g5. I have a 2-point advantage here. King b1. Okay, here's where I had some real chances and blew it. Okay, rook h2 immediately. This is still good. This is still good, but rook h2, the idea being rook f to d8. Idea being, I guess, rook d to h1, threatening to win that piece. Okay. Just going to trade down some pieces first. Queen e5. That's interesting. What about knight f6? This is my curiosity. Oh, queen takes e6. Mates. After rook here, then rook h8 is a mate. I could also grab the hanging rook on c8. What if black doesn't trade down like that? What about the immediate knight f6? Now that we've made a clearance square on f7 for our king. Knight takes e6. Oh, that's a big bad fork, huh? Yeah. So the knight on d4 played a big role here, as in the game. But bringing that rook, doubling the rooks on the h-file immediately was a better idea. Looks like a very defensive move, playing rook h2 here. Just guarding that g2 pawn, but that's not the point. The point is doubling on the h-file, and that knight doesn't have anywhere comfortable to go. And the queen can't guard the knight, because after rook takes, queen takes, rook takes, black's basically down a piece with my queen for his 2 rooks. So, queen h3, I still haven't given up my advantage. This is still good. Queen g6, as in the game. Rook h2. f5. E takes f5. Okay, no, knight. I've got a lot of winning paths here, and I found one of them. How about this? Bishop takes, and we're just going to grab that knight. We're going to be up a piece. Black's got a big pawn center. Got a couple of pawns for the piece now. Just one. He's got 2 pawns for the piece. And after king f7, the rooks aren't doing a whole lot here. If it weren't for back rank problems, we'd have some real ideas. We do. We're winning here. King c1. Many paths to victory, apparently. The computer likes my move. It likes best taking immediately. I do have that pawn defended twice. E takes f5. Now tripling. Doesn't knight f6 solve a lot of problems? We got knight takes f5. And now we're threatening queen check, knight check. I don't know. That f7 square freed up. Oh, there's an immediate fork threatened. I missed this. Okay, knight e7 is a big fork that's threatened. So let's guard that fork. Now knight c. Knight takes d6 is another big fork. Knight h5. Really just let the exchange go? Let that knight go as well? Whew. Black's in dire straits. How low was I on time when all this happened? Here we go. I found out how to figure these things out. Okay. I had 4 minutes left. Wait. I have 5 minutes, 39 seconds. And again, you don't know. You never know that you're facing a chess puzzle with white to play and win, right? That's why it's important to be able to see these things. Probably rook h1 wins here. Isn't that what I played? No, I played that. Yeah, we looked at rook h1. That wins. Knight takes wins as well. Queen takes e6. Here's what happened in the game. Taking on h7. King f7. And I chickened out here with the time. I should have gone, ooh, rook f1. E takes f6, also good. I think the move I played, ooh, threw away virtually all of my advantage. Yeah, it did. Okay, let that be a feisty lesson for everyone. I tried to just capitalize on my pawn up ending, but I didn't realize the activity that gave to his pieces. Look at his bishop. His king is more centralized than mine. His rooks are more coordinated than mine. And they're both on good central files after these exchanges. See, after what happened in the game, he's looking at my g pawn. I'm a pawn up, but it's really hard for me to hang on to that pawn. He kind of threw his equality away with that move, but I didn't. Yeah, maybe I should have gone for g4 there. Yeah, we didn't make ideal moves. Any of us, we keep throwing away advantages or giving the opponent an advantage. Knight f4 right here, of course. Yeah, I didn't see that idea until later. And then if bishop d7, then we've got g4 to solidify things. Okay. Back up a second. So we had a couple other options that were feistier. Keeping a pawn here. Queen h5 check. Yeah. King e7. What if he goes back here? g4. What if black just carries on? Queen h8. What am I missing? Queen h5. I just want to repeat moves. g5 is the idea. Queen h8. g6. And those rooks. He's got to step on a dangerous square wherever he goes. King f6 looks like the best chance, but if he takes here, rook g1 does it. Oof, yeah, we're on g7. We're mating him in 11 moves, apparently. What if he takes with the queen? Whoa. Taking with the queen. Rook f2 check. One move. Rook e1 check. And we're just grabbing a rook at the end of that line. Rook takes f8. Alright. I wasn't feisty enough. I at least didn't pay for it with a loss this time. I had a draw. That's hard to see, that pawn sacrifice. King f6. Now queen h4 check. Please do take that pawn. Now he does take. Rook g1. He has to go to f7. Now our queen watches over f2 for that pin. Bishop f3 though. I like this move. Hitting both of those points. Okay. Well, this is a lot of deep analysis, but the point is to show that I should have pressed on and kept queens on the board. I mean, look at this. Look at this. Look at our king situations here. And I made the choice to go into an endgame, and that is a bad strategic choice. I'm comfortable with endgames, but I underestimated how much more activity, including his king, all of his pieces have. Rook f1. We didn't look at this. Bishop takes here. Oh, yeah, that loses the queen, doesn't it? No, I got back rank problems. Rook f7 can't work here. Oh, it does. If he takes with the king, he can't play rook f1. And if he takes with the rook, this comes with check. Queen takes e4 with check. Interesting. So yeah, bishop can't take f4. It's a tricky line to see, and to see that in a matter of a few minutes is difficult. But sometimes you just got to know that, you know, your position is just completely active and his king is unsafe. Sometimes those generalities are all you have to go on. Rook c to e8. Put some more support on this. g4. Just crunching right through this for the win. Opening up the king side completely. Meanwhile, our king is tucked away here. Got back rank, but that's the only problems we have to solve. f4 to keep things open, but then rook takes f4. King e7. Yeah, queen takes g7. We're gobbling pawns. Rook f7, and now we could simplify, and that's an endgame, right? That's the kind of ending you want to simplify into. But we don't even need to do that here. Queen g5. Rook h8 mate if he goes to f8. And if he brings it up here, rook check wins us a rook. Rook f6, rook h7 check. So he goes king to d8. Sorry, king d7. a4. Yeah, we're just making left for our king. Making an outpost, or you know, giving our knight another possibility. Just saying your move. We just got a solid advantage. We got the attack and we've got the pawn here. Couple of pawns, although black can probably get one back. So, big lesson here. I'll try to remain. Again, these things are things you know. You read them in books. You hear about them when chess players talk all the time. But then it's tempting to go into that end game because you also hear things like, "Oh, if you're down on time, trade the queens." And maybe I made the right practical choice. Maybe I could have played this game differently and gone maybe e takes f5 here. I did look at that move, and then I might have fallen victim to some back rank combination because there's a lot of stuff to calculate in 5 minutes or less. So, a draw isn't the worst outcome in the world against a slightly stronger rated player. So, it's hard to say with too much conviction that I've really screwed up when I traded the queens off, right? Because you can make a mistake and know that it's a mistake if you go on to lose a game or draw one game, but you haven't seen the counterfactual and you haven't seen how you would have played otherwise. But in an objective chess position science sense, yeah, queen takes f5 here is a mistake. Even if I can't hang on to that extra pawn, it really takes all the pressure off of black. I got a lot of pressure here. I was worried about things like rook h8. And I have to trade off my queen for 2 rooks. I know that's technically better in a generic sense for the side with the 2 rooks, my side in that case. But I've never had all that much luck with it in a practical game because the queen is just such a beast of a piece that can create all sorts of threats, forks. If she's got an open board to roam around on and a king to hunt, then she's going to pick off a lot of pawns and or pieces, and she can do that a lot better than 2 rooks, who have a tendency. I mean, if they're coordinated, they can be a heck of a force. But if they're not, one of them could just get picked off, and then you're looking at a queen versus rook ending. So I'm hesitant to give up my queen in these practical games for that reason. Anyway. This has been quite a long video. Let's go look in the end game some here. Likes g4 immediately. That makes a lot of sense. I was worried about bishop f3 and then I have to go rook g1, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Knight d5. Likes knight f4 immediately. I didn't find that until a few moves later. Now it says it's even. I wanted to support that knight, but that c4 is now another weakness. That was a dual-purpose move. I supported the knight, and I also gave my king some left. Also gave the bishop some checks, however, which became key later. It does like g4 here. Oof, that's a bad move. I guess that puts that pawn into a pin a little bit. Yeah, now it likes g4. Let him take that on d5 and win a pawn. Just get g4 in. I guess the idea is we're playing f6 and we're going to have a pass pawn that's more dangerous than black's. It's outside pass pawn, but still it's basically equal. Okay. Rook takes was a mistake. Yeah, I did have some kind of chances against this stuff. Ooh. Knight d5 is a lot more active than knight e2. Knight d5. Yeah, but then I saw king c6, and what do? Rook e1. Okay, the knight obviously belongs on d5. Rook e1, and I'm getting my rook to the 7th and winning some pawns. Ugh, how much time did I have then? Let's see. I was low on time at this point. Knight to e2. Pretty passive. Knight d5 is completely natural. It threatens to come both here and here. Rules out king g6. My thought was I want to rule out king e6 because I don't want him to centralize his king. So knight e2 rules out king e6 because of knight d4. Knight d4 check. And that kind of played out in the game. I mean, that was a... I mean, how much of my advantage did that spoil? Pretty much all of it. Knight d5, though. Those amazing knights on outposts like d5. King e6 is forced, because again, now we've got that. So king e6 is forced. If he tries g6, obviously there's a pin, so I just grab the bishop with g4 for a pawn. King here, but now I didn't see this secondary check. And he has to either go back to f7 or d7. Oh my. King c8. This is a mate. I love these rook and knight mates. It's called a hook mate or something. So king to c8 is the only move. I could push him further away from the center by doing this before going for that. Yeah. And this pawn's ready to roll and hit that bishop. This is... maybe it's not so good to... Yeah, taking immediately is better. Instead of checking the king, taking immediately is better because now we're threatening a fork. Bishop e6. Now we get our king in the game, and this is a rook ending that I should be able to win with my rook on the 7th and his king on the opposite side of the board for my passed pawn. Okay, missed a few wins here, guys. Missed a few wins, but it always stings a lot less when it doesn't result in a loss. And by the time we got to knight d4, yeah, I lost a pawn. Now black's the one with the winning chances. Just go for g3. Probably taking here was good. Not allowing that rook to come to f2. Yeah, it gets my rook active. Even though I'm a pawn down, that's usually enough to force him to make defensive moves. It's looking at knight c6, b takes c6, rook c4, rook c8, yeah, rook d4. So yeah, keeping our rook threatening those pawns of his. And his king, my king is much better than his. So that's enough compensation for the pawn here. As it was, I took a step away, and that gave him a big advantage. So not being afraid to go for those rook endings. And when I did go for it, it was still good enough, thankfully. Yeah. Okay. And I'm not disappointed I took the draw at this point. It is a hard thing to do when you feel like you've been winning most of the game, to take that draw, but you gotta stay objective about the position at hand. So there we go, my first draw. Thanks for watching, folks. See you next time on Feisty Chess.